Did you ever imagine a moment so shocking, so publicly humiliating, that it makes you question everything you thought you knew about a person? A moment so raw and unfiltered that the entire world watches in awe, holding its collective breath? That's exactly what happened when Dakota Fanning, the Hollywood darling who grew up in front of our eyes, looked Meghan Markle square in the eyes on Late Night with Seth Meyers and, without hesitation, called her a fake Duchess. The words hung in the air like a bomb ready to detonate, and the ripples from that single moment are still being felt across social media, Hollywood gossip circles, and even royal watchers who thought they had seen it all. Picture this. The lights are bright, the audience is buzzing with excitement, and the stage is alive with the energy that only late-night television can muster. Seth Meyers, calm and collected as ever, is poised to guide the conversation. He has hosted countless celebrities, navigated dozens of heated moments, and yet, in that instant, even he seemed caught off guard. You could almost see him thinking, wait, did she just say that? Because she did. Dakota Fanning, with a voice steady and eyes gleaming with subtle mischief, threw the words into the spotlight like darts aimed directly at Meghan's carefully cultivated public persona. Fake Duchess. The words were simple, yet loaded with so much power, history, and implication that everyone watching felt a shiver run down their spine. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would Dakota Fanning, a well-known, respected actress, make such a bold, almost reckless statement on national television? The answer isn't simple. It's tangled with Hollywood politics, celebrity rivalries, and the immense pressure of being under the public microscope. Dakota Fanning isn't known for mincing words. She grew up acting in high-stakes roles, navigating the treacherous waters of fame as a child star, and somehow emerged unscathed, poised, and fearless. But even she likely didn't anticipate the magnitude of the storm that would follow that one devastating comment. And Meghan Markle, the former actress turned Duchess turned global celebrity, is no stranger to public scrutiny. She has faced relentless media attacks, tabloid conspiracies, and online vitriol since the moment she entered the royal spotlight. Every public appearance, every statement, every Instagram post is dissected, analyzed, and often weaponized by both critics and supporters alike. But even for someone with Meghan's experience in managing public perception, this moment was unprecedented. Dakota's words didn't just challenge her, they punctured the armor she had built around her image, leaving her exposed in front of millions of viewers. But let's pause for a moment. Before we dive into what happened on that stage, consider this. How often does a celebrity confrontation capture the public's imagination this completely? We live in a world where online feuds erupt daily, Twitter wars, Instagram subtweets, YouTube callouts, but rarely do they reach a moment of this kind of raw, visceral intensity. Here, in this one televised exchange, we had a collision of worlds. Hollywood glamour versus royal mystique, blunt honesty versus carefully curated image, spontaneity versus control. It was the perfect storm for drama, controversy, and viral content. And the timing? Impeccable. Dakota Fanning's appearance on Late Night with Seth Meyers was already generating buzz because she had just completed a high-profile film, one that had critics raving and audiences flocking to theaters. Meghan Markle, on the other hand, was in the midst of navigating her post-royal ventures, media deals, public appearances, and philanthropic initiatives. The stage was set, and the tension between celebrity worlds and royal realities was palpable. When Dakota's words hit, it wasn't just a soundbite, it was a cultural moment. The cameras caught it all, the slight pause, the barely perceptible intake of breath from Meghan, the murmur of the audience. And in that pause, millions of viewers leaned closer, eager to see what would unfold next. Here's a question for you. Have you ever watched someone in real-time experience the moment their carefully crafted reputation is challenged? It's uncomfortable, riveting, and somehow mesmerizing. That's exactly what millions witnessed on that fateful night. And the reactions didn't stop at the studio. Within minutes, social media erupted. Twitter exploded with hashtags, memes, and fiery commentary. Instagram stories went viral, some praising Dakota for her honesty, others defending Meghan, insisting that the Duchess title doesn't make her any less authentic. The cultural conversation ignited almost instantly, with news outlets scrambling to report every nuance of the exchange. But here's the kicker. What Dakota said wasn't just an insult. It carried layers of insinuation, a suggestion that Meghan's persona, the way she navigates fame, charity, and royal heritage, might not be entirely genuine. It was a comment that pierced through the glossy image, hinting at a deeper truth that many people had long suspected but never dared to voice publicly. For those who follow royal and Hollywood dynamics closely, this was not a trivial quip. This was a moment that could redefine public perception, spark debates for months, and, perhaps, even alter Meghan's carefully managed narrative. And what made it even more explosive was the subtlety of Dakota's delivery. She didn't shout, she didn't dramatize, she didn't overplay the moment. It was her calm, almost matter-of-fact tone that made the words hit harder. There's a peculiar power in saying something devastating softly, letting the audience lean in and fill the silence with their own assumptions, their own interpretations. Every pause, every glance, every subtle smirk was a masterclass in timing and tension. And Meghan's response, or rather, her initial inability to respond, added another layer of intrigue. Did she freeze? Did she process what had just been said? Or was this part of a larger performance? These questions raced through the minds of everyone watching. Now, let's take a step back and examine the broader stakes. Why should anyone care about this confrontation? After all, it's one late-night interview among hundreds. But this moment matters because it intersects with multiple cultural conversations. It's about celebrity accountability, the scrutiny of public figures, and the fragile nature of image in a world obsessed with perfection. It's about how words, spoken in a single instant, can ripple across continents, dominate headlines, and define narratives. And it's about watching a global figure, someone once protected by royalty and media training, confronted with an accusation of inauthenticity in real time. That's why this isn't just gossip. It's a moment of cultural significance. Imagine the tension backstage after the cameras cut. Crew members whispering, assistants checking phones, producers wondering how to spin the moment for online clips. Social media managers rushing to craft the perfect response. Fans tweeting, debating, and creating a frenzy of speculation. And at the center of it all, Meghan Markle, navigating the thin line between composure and outrage, reality and perception. One wrong move could escalate the story from a late-night headline to a global scandal. And yet, amidst the chaos, there's a thread of intrigue. What drove Dakota Fanning to make this comment in the first place? Was it personal animosity, professional frustration, or a strategic choice, knowing the words would explode online? And what about Meghan? How does someone who has endured years of public scrutiny, royal pressure, and media attacks handle such a direct and unexpected blow? These questions are not only compelling, they are essential to understanding the full scope of the story. Here's the cliffhanger for this introduction. What Dakota said next, after calling Meghan a fake Duchess, left the studio in stunned silence. Seth Meyers, known for his quick wit and calm demeanor, hesitated. The audience gasped. And Meghan's next move, her reaction, her words, her expression, was something that no one, not even the most seasoned celebrity watchers, could have predicted. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. This was more than an insult. It was a public reckoning. A moment that exposed cracks in Meghan's polished public image, ignited conversations across continents, and set the stage for a confrontation that would dominate headlines for weeks. It was a collision of Hollywood bravado and royal mystique, a drama unfolding in real time. And it all started with a single, devastating phrase, fake Duchess. It all began like any other evening on late night with Seth Meyers. The audience was buzzing with excitement. The cameras were rolling, and the familiar, polished set glimmered under the studio lights. But something in the air that night was different. There was a tension, a subtle electric charge that hinted that this episode would not be ordinary. Most viewers probably expected a standard celebrity interview, lighthearted jokes, and a few viral-worthy moments. No one anticipated the cultural earthquake that was about to occur. And yet, from the very first few minutes, the signs were all there. Imagine this. The camera pans across the live audience, faces illuminated by the soft glow of the studio lights. You can see the mix of curiosity and excitement, the quick scrolling of phones capturing every angle for Instagram stories and TikTok clips. The audience knows they're about to witness something big, even if they don't realize it yet. Seth Meyers strides onto the stage with his characteristic charisma, offering his witty opening monologue, playing off the day's news, and warming the crowd for the evening's guests. Then, the moment arrives. Dakota Fanning walks onto the stage. Dakota, the grown-up Hollywood star who transitioned seamlessly from child prodigy to respected actress, exudes a calm confidence that demands attention without demanding it. She smiles politely, waves to the audience, and sits down opposite Seth. The crowd erupts in applause, but there's a subtle tension beneath the clapping. Those who follow Hollywood gossip closely already know Dakota isn't someone to shy away from saying what's on her mind. She has a reputation for honesty, for blunt commentary, and for cutting through pretense with ease. Tonight, it seems, the world is about to witness that firsthand. Now, enter Meghan Markle, or rather, the topic of Meghan Markle. Even though she isn't sitting on the couch that night, her presence looms over the conversation. The air is thick with anticipation because Dakota is already known to have connections with royal watchers, Hollywood insiders, and mutual acquaintances who have seen Meghan in her post-royal, media-heavy life. There's an unspoken understanding. When Dakota speaks, she doesn't just speak to Seth or the audience. She speaks to the entire world. And that is exactly what would make this episode unforgettable. The stage is set for a collision of two worlds, Hollywood stardom and royal prestige. On one side, Dakota Fanning, fearless, candid, unpolished in her honesty. On the other, Meghan Markle, a figure whose image is meticulously managed, whose every appearance is scrutinized, whose every word carries layers of implication and expectation. And in the middle sits Seth Meyers, the mediator, the guide, the one whose calm presence attempts to balance the charged energy in the room. But even Seth, experienced as he is, cannot fully predict what is about to unfold. As the conversation begins, Dakota talks about her latest film, her experiences on set, and the pressures of Hollywood life. The audience laughs, nods, and hangs on her every word. Her charm is effortless, her wit sharp, her insights engaging. She shares anecdotes about growing up in the spotlight, the challenges of maintaining authenticity while navigating fame, and the pressures of constantly being watched. And then, with a subtle shift in tone, the conversation takes a turn. Dakota begins to touch on broader cultural topics, public perception, authenticity, and the ways in which people curate their personas for the world to see. It's at this moment that the stage is quietly primed for what will come next. Dakota doesn't announce her intent. There is no fanfare, no dramatic pause designed to alert the audience to an impending verbal strike. She simply begins to speak, her words measured, her tone calm, yet carrying an unmistakable weight. And then, she drops it, the line that will echo across media platforms and dominate headlines. Fake Duchess. For a split second, there is silence. The audience freezes, the cameras linger, and Seth Meyers' normally quick wit falters. The words are deceptively simple, yet they carry an immense emotional punch. Fake Duchess. In 2 words, Dakota has challenged everything Meghan has cultivated, her image, her credibility, and her authenticity. The phrase is a direct confrontation, a call-out, and an accusation rolled into one. It's not shouted, it's not exaggerated, it's delivered with a quiet precision that makes it land like a bomb in the studio. What makes this moment so potent is not just the content of the words, but the context in which they were delivered. Late-night television is a space where humor, commentary, and celebrity banter mix freely. Audiences expect jokes, playful jabs, and occasional moments of tension. But this, the direct, piercing accusation of inauthenticity, wasn't just entertainment. It was a cultural statement, an observation about public personas that cuts through the noise and hits at the core of what it means to be a public figure. Now, picture Meghan Markle watching this unfold. Even from a distance, the impact of those words cannot be understated. Meghan has spent years navigating a world where image is everything, where public perception can define careers, opportunities, and personal narratives. To hear someone call her fake, someone outside the royal circle, someone unafraid to speak bluntly, is a moment that shakes the carefully constructed image she has worked tirelessly to maintain. And the audience at home feels it too. The tension is palpable, the stakes are high, and everyone is holding their breath, waiting for her reaction. But let's not forget the role of Seth Meyers in all of this. The host's job is to guide the conversation, maintain flow, and sometimes diffuse tension. Yet, even he is momentarily caught off guard. There's a subtle pause, a slight shift in his expression, a recognition that something extraordinary just occurred. The audience senses it. The viewers at home sense it. And in that pause, the moment grows even larger, magnified by anticipation, curiosity, and the unspoken question hanging in the air. What will Meghan do next? The energy in the studio shifts. Applause fades into a quiet murmur. Whispers ripple through the production crew. Phones are raised, recording every second for social media clips. Online viewers begin live tweeting, speculating, and dissecting each subtle gesture, each micro-expression. This isn't just a celebrity interview anymore. It's a cultural event, a moment of public reckoning, a collision of worlds. And it all started with a single, deliberate line delivered with calm precision. Fake Duchess. It's at this moment that you realize how perfectly staged, or perhaps how perfectly organic, this interaction is. Dakota Fanning has mastered the art of timing. She understands the weight of words, the power of context, and the way silence can amplify impact. And Meghan, for all her experience in managing public perception, is now placed in a position that few ever truly anticipate. Unprepared, on the spot, and forced to respond to an unfiltered observation that pierces the veneer of her public persona. And the audience? They are hooked. They lean in. They scroll, tweet, share, and speculate. Because moments like these are rare. Real-time humiliation of a global celebrity, executed with subtlety and precision, is something that captivates in ways that gossip columns and tabloids rarely can. There is an emotional intensity, a combination of empathy, schadenfreude, and curiosity that makes people unable to look away. You want to know what happens next. You want to see the reaction. You want to witness how this unfolds. And that is precisely what Dakota Fanning has achieved. A moment of suspense, a narrative tension that is impossible to ignore. She has shifted the dynamics of the interview, redefined the stakes, and created a moment that will be talked about for weeks. Social media, news outlets, and celebrity commentators are already racing to contextualize, analyze, and speculate. Has Dakota crossed a line? Or has she simply articulated a truth that many had long suspected? Does this mark a turning point in Meghan's public image? Or is it merely a fleeting moment blown out of proportion by the media machine? EXT escalated the moment from shocking to unforgettable. Most celebrities, when faced with such public scrutiny, tread carefully, wrap their words in layers of humor, or retreat behind practiced smiles. Not Dakota. She didn't flinch. She didn't hem and haw. She leaned forward, her eyes steady, her voice measured, and she doubled down. In that instant, the studio air thickened with tension, the audience's collective breath caught, and every camera in the room seemed to linger just a little longer on her expression. Here's the thing about Dakota Fanning. She's not just a former child star turned adult actress. She's someone who has navigated the treacherous waters of Hollywood fame for nearly 2 decades. She's grown up under public scrutiny, with every misstep, every awkward phase, every poorly received movie role cataloged by critics and the public alike. And she emerged on the other side with poise, intelligence, and a fearlessness that few possess. She understands the dynamics of power, perception, and timing, and she used that understanding to perfection on this night. Now, let's rewind for a moment to put this in context. Meghan Markle, for all her experience navigating media attention, royalty, and Hollywood, has been under attack in the public sphere for years. Every gesture, every comment, every photo is dissected and debated. She is a figure who lives in the glare of constant observation, and while she has cultivated an image of composure and empathy, there's always the question of authenticity. Is this the real Meghan? Or is it the Meghan the world has been trained to see? Dakota's words weren't just an attack, they were a challenge to that very perception. After the initial comment, Dakota didn't pause for laughs or audience reaction. She continued, calmly and deliberately, weaving a narrative that questioned the construction of Meghan's public persona. She highlighted the contrast between public image and personal reality, the way appearances can be manipulated, and the subtle ways in which people project curated versions of themselves to the world. It was insightful, incisive, and delivered with a calm authority that left the audience hanging on every word. Imagine sitting in the audience for a moment. You're watching a Hollywood star, known for her charm and grace, systematically dissect the image of a global celebrity whose life has been under the microscope since the moment she became a duchess. You feel the tension ripple through the room. There's shock, curiosity, and a touch of exhilaration. People are leaning forward, phones raised, capturing every second because moments like this, real, unfiltered, and consequential, don't happen every day. But Dakota didn't just rely on her words. Her delivery was precise, her body language controlled. She spoke with a calm directness that made the words hit harder. Every glance, every subtle movement, every shift in tone was calculated to maximize impact. And it worked. The audience was silent in that tense pause between sentences, hanging on the inevitable reaction that everyone knew would follow. And then there was Seth Meyers. Normally quick-witted, poised, and ready for any curveball, he was momentarily thrown off balance. You could see the flicker of surprise cross his face, the subtle adjustment in his posture as he processed what had just been said. That pause, brief, almost imperceptible, was telling. Seth, a veteran of late-night interviews, had just witnessed a bold move that even he hadn't anticipated. And that hesitation only heightened the tension for viewers at home. Now, let's talk about Meghan. Even from a distance, or from the perspective of viewers watching online, the impact of Dakota's words was undeniable. Here was someone whose entire life had been scrutinized, whose every action had been analyzed, being confronted by a Hollywood peer with an accusation of inauthenticity. The weight of the moment was palpable. This wasn't tabloids or social media comments. This was live, in front of a national audience. And there's something uniquely disarming about being challenged publicly by someone outside the immediate circle of observers. It forces introspection, triggers instinctive reactions, and often lays bare vulnerabilities that are otherwise carefully hidden. But what makes Dakota's move even more remarkable is the strategy behind it. She didn't just say something shocking to provoke attention. Her words were layered, nuanced, and carefully considered. She knew exactly how to balance humor with critique, bluntness with insight. She understood the mechanics of audience psychology, how to make people lean in, pay attention, and engage with the moment on an emotional level. And in doing so, she didn't just make a comment. She created a narrative that would dominate headlines, memes, and social media discussions for days. Here's a question for the audience. Have you ever witnessed someone take a calculated risk in real time, knowing that it could either elevate them or ignite controversy? That's exactly what Dakota did. She weighed the potential backlash, the possible media storm, and the cultural implications, and chose to speak anyway. The result? A moment that was electric, unforgettable, and impossible to ignore. And the audience's reaction? It was a mix of shock, admiration, and disbelief. Some applauded Dakota's courage. Others gasped at the audacity of calling out someone so high-profile. The studio felt alive, vibrating with energy, as every eye was locked on the unfolding drama. Social media users immediately began dissecting every nuance, the tone, the facial expressions, the subtext. Within minutes, clips of the exchange were trending, sparking heated debates online and fueling endless speculation. But here's the twist that made the moment even more fascinating. Dakota's comment wasn't just about Meghan. It was about the broader cultural conversation surrounding authenticity, fame, and the curated identities that public figures project. By calling Meghan a fake duchess, Dakota tapped into a universal tension that resonates with audiences everywhere. The gap between perception and reality, image and authenticity, public persona and private self. In doing so, she didn't just create a celebrity moment. She sparked a conversation that extended far beyond the studio, touching on societal fascination with fame, scrutiny, and the ways we judge those in the spotlight. And then came the moment that would send shockwaves across both Hollywood and royal circles. Dakota, sensing the perfect pause, leaned in slightly, lowered her voice just enough to make the words land with precision, and added context that magnified the sting. She referenced the curated lifestyle, the careful public appearances, and the media management strategies that many suspected but few dared to call out. The implication was clear. Meghan's image is a construction, carefully built and maintained, and here it was being questioned, publicly, boldly, and without apology. By the time she finished, the room was electrified. Seth Meyers, the audience, and viewers at home were all acutely aware that they had witnessed something extraordinary. Dakota had not just made a statement. She had delivered a performance of subtle power, a calculated move that blended observation, insight, and timing into a moment that would be dissected for weeks. The impact was immediate, the tension palpable, and the stakes higher than ever. Here's the cliffhanger. While the words themselves were devastating, the next response, the moment when Meghan would finally react, was entirely unpredictable. Would she respond with grace, fury, or strategic silence? How she chose to handle the comment would define public perception in ways that few imagined. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Fake Duchess. Simple, precise, devastating. And then silence. For a moment, it seemed as though time itself had slowed. The studio lights glared down, the cameras rolled unblinking, and every eye in the audience, every viewer at home, was fixed on Meghan Markle's reaction. Because even though she wasn't sitting on the couch, Meghan's presence was felt everywhere. The accusation, delivered with surgical precision by Dakota Fanning, cut through the glamour, the media spin, and the public image, leaving her persona exposed in a way that few had ever witnessed. Picture the scene. The cameras catch a subtle twitch in her smile, the almost imperceptible narrowing of her eyes. Perhaps it's surprise. Perhaps it's incredulity. Or maybe it's the flash of calculation, evaluating, strategizing, planning the next move. The audience notices, the internet notices, and for a brief, electric moment, the world collectively holds its breath. What would she do? What would she say? Would she rise to the bait, respond with poise, or retreat into silence? Every second stretched, a tension-filled interval that made the heart race. Meghan's initial reaction, though brief, was telling. There was a flicker of discomfort, a pause, a hesitation. It was the kind of reaction that comes when someone's carefully constructed public persona is challenged in real time. She has navigated relentless scrutiny for years, paparazzi following her every move, media pundits dissecting her every word, and social media users passing judgment with impunity. But this was different. This wasn't a tweet, a magazine cover, or an anonymous rumor. This was live, unfiltered, and blunt, a declaration from a Hollywood peer, one who commanded attention and wielded words with precision. For viewers, it was a fascinating study in human psychology. Meghan had faced criticism before, but this public confrontation introduced a new variable, the audacity of an external celebrity, someone unconnected to royal protocol, questioning her authenticity in front of millions. It's a moment that tests even the most seasoned public figure, and the initial pause, the split-second hesitation, is filled with complexity. Was it shock? Recognition of the truth? Or the immediate calculation of damage control? Then came the micro-expressions, subtle movements, almost imperceptible, but captured in high definition for the entire world to see. A tightening of the jaw, a brief upward tilt of the chin, a glance that seemed to flicker between composure and disbelief. These expressions reveal layers of internal response, pride, defensiveness, vulnerability, and the instinctive drive to maintain control over one's narrative. For a public figure like Meghan, every nuance is magnified, every gesture analyzed, every reaction becoming a piece of the broader puzzle that constitutes public perception. Seth Meyers, ever the composed host, tried to interject with a light comment, an attempt to redirect or diffuse. But the weight of Dakota's statement had already shifted the dynamics in the studio. Even his carefully honed timing, his experience managing tense celebrity moments, could not fully neutralize the impact. It was clear that the conversation had transformed. What started as a promotional interview had become an unplanned, high-stakes confrontation. And the audience, both in studio and at home, felt it. There is a unique electricity when someone is challenged in a public forum, and when that challenge touches on authenticity and identity, the response is amplified. Social media began to light up instantly. Tweets speculating on Meghan's facial expressions, Instagram stories replaying clips of the moment, and YouTube commentators analyzing every second in detail. The world was watching, dissecting, judging, and it was only the beginning. Meghan's internal calculus was undoubtedly complex. how to respond without overreacting, how to preserve dignity while countering the implied accusation, how to maintain her image while addressing the sting of public humiliation. Every choice carried weight, not just for the moment, but for the weeks, months, and even years to come. And in the background, the public was forming its own narrative, interpreting silence, reading between the lines, and projecting expectations onto every gesture. For many viewers, Meghan's reaction was relatable. Who hasn't felt caught off guard by a public slight, a harsh judgment, or an accusation that cuts deeper than expected? The mixture of shock, contemplation, and controlled response is universal, but when amplified through the lens of celebrity culture and royal expectations, it becomes mesmerizing. The audience is drawn in, not just by the spectacle, but by the human element, by the vulnerability that creeps into even the most controlled public figures. And yet, Meghan's initial reaction was more than just a pause. It was an invitation for the audience to wonder, to speculate, to anticipate. Her subtle, measured response conveyed resilience, but also the tension of someone who knew that any misstep could be magnified, misinterpreted, and dissected endlessly. The microsecond hesitation, the small gestures, the almost imperceptible intake of breath, all of it became part of the narrative. And in those fleeting moments, millions of viewers leaned in closer, waiting for the next move. But Dakota wasn't done. Her delivery, calm and unwavering, allowed the tension to build. She didn't need to raise her voice or dramatize. The power of her statement was in its simplicity, its timing, and the credibility of the speaker. Dakota had transformed a standard late-night interview into a high-stakes, emotionally charged encounter, and Meghan's initial reaction only fueled the suspense. For viewers, it was like watching a slow-motion collision. Every detail mattered, every glance was significant, and every second heightened the anticipation of what would happen next. What followed that initial pause was subtle, yet deeply telling. Meghan's eyes narrowed slightly, her posture shifted imperceptibly, and her expression seemed to signal both defiance and contemplation. It was a delicate balance, maintaining composure while processing the public challenge, managing internal emotions while projecting strength, and preparing a calculated response in a matter of seconds. For the audience, these micro-moments were electric. Each subtle cue was analyzed, speculated upon, and shared across social media platforms within minutes. And here's an interesting twist. Meghan's response, or lack thereof, was not just a personal moment. It became a reflection of broader cultural themes, how women in the public eye are scrutinized, how celebrity and royalty intersect with notions of authenticity, and how the pressures of public life amplify every interaction. Dakota's comment, simple as it seemed, tapped into these currents, exposing vulnerabilities and sparking debates that extended far beyond the studio. At this point, viewers began to speculate wildly. Was Meghan caught off guard because the comment was true? Was she shocked because she hadn't anticipated criticism from someone outside the royal and Hollywood circles? Or was it the sheer audacity of the moment, the boldness of Dakota calling her out on live television, that left her momentarily speechless? Every theory fueled more discussion, more analysis, and more curiosity. And that's precisely what makes this moment so captivating. It's a human drama unfolding on a global stage, and no one can look away. Within minutes of Dakota Fanning dropping the words "fake Duchess" on Late Night with Seth Meyers, the moment leapt from the television screens into the digital world. Social media, as it often does in situations of public confrontation, became a living, breathing ecosystem, reacting with lightning speed to every nuance of the exchange. Twitter was ablaze with hashtags, retweets, and viral clips. Instagram stories replayed the moment endlessly, dissecting every glance, every microexpression. TikTok users were already piecing together reaction videos, dramatic reenactments, and comedic commentary. It was as if the digital world itself had collectively leaned in to witness the unfolding drama, hungry for every second of Meghan's response. The internet's reaction was immediate and polarized. On one side, Dakota's comment was praised as a bold act of honesty. Some commentators framed her as a fearless critic, a woman unafraid to speak truth to power. Finally, someone called it, tweeted one user, garnering thousands of likes within minutes. "She's not being nasty. She's being real." Another wrote, echoing the sentiment of those who viewed Meghan's carefully curated image as performative. These voices celebrated Dakota as a heroine of candor, someone willing to pierce through the layers of celebrity polish that so often shield the rich, famous, and powerful from scrutiny. On the other side, Meghan's supporters erupted in her defense. "How dare she?" exclaimed one trending post, arguing that Dakota's remark was not only unnecessary but disrespectful. "Meghan is doing incredible work, and Dakota just embarrassed her for views," wrote another, reflecting a growing backlash against the actress for her audacious choice of words. Comment threads swelled with impassioned debates. Was Dakota's critique a matter of honesty, or was it a thinly veiled attack? Was Meghan being unfairly judged, or was she, as some suggested, being called out for a truth she had tried to manage carefully? The digital firestorm was instantaneous, intense, and nearly impossible to control. What made this moment particularly explosive was how the conversation quickly spilled across platforms and demographics. Late-night shows are known to generate clips that trend online, but rarely with this level of virality. The phrase, "fake Duchess," became a hashtag almost immediately. Instagram memes emerged, juxtaposing Dakota's calm expression with various images of Meghan, each one playing on public perception, irony, and the shocking boldness of the moment. Even mainstream news outlets jumped in, publishing headlines and streaming clips within hours, expanding the reach of the exchange to audiences far beyond the initial broadcast. The speed of dissemination was staggering. By the time the studio lights had dimmed, the conversation was already global. International audiences, particularly in countries with avid royal watchers, were analyzing the moment with obsessive detail. The British tabloids went wild, dissecting every nuance of Meghan's expression, every pause, every reaction, and every word Dakota had uttered. In the United States, entertainment media framed it as a celebrity showdown of epic proportions. Hollywood meets royalty in a confrontation that no one anticipated. And on social media, clips were shared and remixed at an almost frantic pace, making the moment impossible to ignore. What fueled this frenzy was not just the statement itself, but the timing and the dynamics involved. Dakota Fanning, calm, poised, and deliberate, delivered a critique that touched upon authenticity, celebrity image, and social perception, all hot-button topics in modern culture. Meghan Markle, a figure constantly under scrutiny, became a lightning rod for discussion about the pressures of public life, image management, and authenticity in a celebrity-driven world. The collision of these two forces, Hollywood bluntness and royal scrutiny, created a perfect storm, one that online audiences eagerly consumed, debated, and dissected. And the reactions didn't stop at commentary. Memes, GIFs, reaction videos, and parody accounts exploded. TikTok users recreated the moment with dramatic reenactments, complete with music and exaggerated facial expressions. Twitter users debated the implications, some framing it as a cultural reckoning, others as a personal slight. Reddit threads dissected microexpressions, timing, and context. YouTube channels uploaded analysis videos, breaking down the scene frame by frame, speculating on motivations, intent, and the aftermath. In a matter of hours, the clip had become more than just a segment of a late-night interview. It had become a cultural phenomenon. And then there was the commentary from celebrities themselves. A few of Dakota's peers weighed in, either defending her audacity or questioning whether the comment crossed a line. Public figures with ties to both Hollywood and the royal sphere shared their opinions, amplifying the moment's significance. The layers of discussion became increasingly complex. Was this an honest critique, a playful jab, or a calculated move to dominate headlines? The debate spilled into podcasts, radio shows, and late-night recaps, creating a chain reaction that was nearly impossible to stop. Interestingly, the viral explosion was fueled as much by what wasn't said as what was. Meghan's measured, subtle, initial reaction, the pause, the micro-expressions, the slight shift in posture, fueled speculation. Fans and critics alike attempted to decode her response, wondering if silence was strategic, if hesitation revealed inner turmoil, or if it was a masterclass in damage control. Every subtle cue became fodder for analysis. Every eye roll, half smile, or intake of breath was scrutinized, dissected, and debated online. The digital world became a stage itself, with millions of participants analyzing and amplifying the tension. At the heart of this virality was a paradoxical dynamic. The more people tried to defend or criticize Meghan, the more attention Dakota's words received. Every article, every retweet, every social media post became a multiplier, expanding the reach of the exchange exponentially. It was a textbook example of how modern media works. A single comment, delivered live and unfiltered, cascades into a cultural phenomenon through the interconnected web of news outlets, social media, and celebrity commentary. And yet, the story didn't stop at online reactions. The moment had tangible effects on the real world. PR teams scrambled. Celebrity managers analyzed the potential fallout. Advisors weighed in on damage control strategies. Media analysts debated the implications for Meghan's brand, her public image, and future engagements. The conversation that began on a late-night stage had become a multifaceted spectacle, bridging the worlds of celebrity, royalty, media, and public opinion. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this explosion was the speed with which it created a feedback loop. Social media reactions influenced news coverage. News coverage fueled online speculation, and online speculation drove further discussion. Every new post, tweet, or video clip reignited the moment, ensuring that the public remained engaged long after the interview ended. And here's the cliffhanger. Just as the internet seemed to reach a fever pitch, with hashtags trending globally and memes circulating endlessly, a mysterious insider began leaking previously unknown details about the relationship between Dakota and Meghan. Suddenly, the story was no longer confined to what had occurred on the late night with Seth Meyers stage. There were whispers of past encounters, behind-the-scenes tensions, and private moments that no one had seen. And these leaks hinted at a shocking truth, one that could reshape everything viewers thought they knew about this confrontation. What came next would take the online frenzy and elevate it to a level that no one could have anticipated. To understand the impact of Dakota Fanning's words, "fake Duchess," we need to rewind, because this wasn't a random attack. It didn't happen in a vacuum. There's a history, subtle but powerful, stretching back years, filled with overlapping Hollywood circles, media scrutiny, and whispered rivalries. And at the heart of it is Meghan Markle, whose transition from actress to Duchess to global celebrity has been watched with fascination, and often skepticism, by millions. From the beginning, Meghan's life in the public eye has been complex. As an actress, she had already navigated the pressures of fame, with fans, critics, and colleagues closely observing her every move. Her role on Suits made her recognizable, but it was her marriage to Prince Harry that transformed her into an international figure. Suddenly, every smile, every gesture, every word carried layers of implication. Charity work, royal duties, public appearances, media interviews. The world expected poise, compassion, and perfection. There was little room for imperfection, let alone criticism. Dakota Fanning, in contrast, followed a different trajectory. She began as a child star, appearing in films like I Am Sam and War of the Worlds, where her talent was immediately apparent. Unlike Meghan, Dakota remained in Hollywood, navigating fame without royal pressures, but with its own brand of scrutiny. Growing up on the sets of major films, she developed resilience, independence, and a knack for blunt honesty. She learned early that speaking truth, even when uncomfortable, could command attention and respect. And over the years, she cultivated a reputation for being straightforward, fearless, and unafraid to voice her opinions, even on sensitive topics. The collision course between these two worlds, Hollywood bluntness and royal expectations, was inevitable. While Dakota moved in circles that respected directness and honesty, Meghan moved in a world where diplomacy, image management, and calculated restraint were prized. When two public figures from such different paradigms intersect, tension is almost guaranteed. In fact, whispers of discomfort and subtle disagreements between Meghan and other Hollywood figures had circulated for years. Whether it was commentary about Meghan's media strategies, her interviews, or her public persona, the stage was set for scrutiny and critique. It's also important to consider the role of the media in cultivating this tension. For years, Meghan's every move has been covered in exhaustive detail. Paparazzi images, tabloid speculation, and social media commentary created a narrative of both admiration and suspicion. Meanwhile, Dakota, respected but less sensationalized in the tabloids, was able to observe these dynamics from a distance. She saw the choreography behind Meghan's public appearances, the careful curation of interviews, and the strategic messaging that often accompanies high-profile figures. For someone accustomed to candidness, the contrast may have seemed striking, even disingenuous. And then there's the Hollywood insider perspective. Both women share acquaintances, circles, and events, though not always publicly. Dakota has attended charity events, premieres, and high-profile galas where Meghan's name is often discussed. Sources suggest that Dakota's observations were informed not just by public appearances, but by whispers, gossip, and subtle cues from within these networks. She had seen how Meghan navigated fame differently from her peers, careful, curated, and sometimes enigmatic. This wasn't personal animosity. It was a professional observation, sharpened by insight, experience, and understanding of celebrity culture. But the tension wasn't merely observational, it was also cultural. Meghan's unique position as both an American actress and a member of the British royal family creates a set of expectations that are virtually impossible to meet. She must navigate media narratives, royal protocol, and fan expectations simultaneously. Every gesture is scrutinized for authenticity. Every smile, every interview, every social appearance is dissected. In this environment, someone like Dakota, who operates with Hollywood directness and an understanding of the entertainment industry, might perceive cracks or performative elements that the casual observer misses. Here's where the story becomes even more layered. Dakota's reputation for honesty and forthright commentary meant that she wasn't afraid to voice what others might hesitate to say aloud. And Meghan's public persona, meticulously crafted over years, made her the perfect subject for such critique. What Dakota said on Seth Meyers' show, simple as it seemed, was a culmination of observations, insider awareness, and perhaps even subtle tension that had built over time. The words were not impulsive, they were informed. The history between Hollywood and royalty also adds context. Celebrities often enter royal circles through invitations, galas, or charity events. These interactions, though polite on the surface, can harbor undercurrents of judgment, comparison, and rivalry. Public figures watch each other, measuring authenticity, charisma, and influence. Meghan, a relative newcomer to these environments, faced scrutiny not only from traditional media, but also from peers who observed her navigation of these complex social dynamics. Dakota, steeped in Hollywood's culture of blunt honesty, likely found Meghan's highly curated image a point of fascination and critique. It's important to recognize that this tension is not purely personal. It is emblematic of broader dynamics. Meghan represents a rare blend of royalty and celebrity, a combination that is both alluring and vulnerable to scrutiny. Dakota represents Hollywood authenticity, a no-nonsense approach to fame that is often critical of overtly managed public personas. When these worlds intersect, especially on live television, the collision is intense, immediate, and charged with cultural significance. Social media history also reflects this tension. Observers had noted that Dakota and Meghan rarely publicly interacted, but when they did, subtle cues hinted at curiosity, mild rivalry, or passive observation. In Hollywood, silent judgments often carry more weight than overt conflict. The late-night stage, therefore, became a perfect theater for these underlying dynamics to surface. The audience, both live and online, had the sense that they were witnessing more than just a casual comment. They were seeing years of subtle observation and cultural friction crystallize into a moment of public confrontation. And so, when Dakota leaned in and delivered the phrase, "fake Duchess," it carried multiple layers: a critique informed by experience, an observation born of insider awareness, and a statement that tapped into public curiosity about Meghan's authenticity. The words were devastating precisely because they were accurate enough to provoke reflection, yet ambiguous enough to ignite debate. They were a perfect storm of critique, spectacle, and timing, a culmination of professional observation, cultural tension, and carefully honed delivery. Here's the cliffhanger: the tension that had simmered for years, visible to some but unnoticed by many, had just erupted in a public, undeniable form. What Dakota revealed about Meghan wasn't just a casual insult. It was a spark that would ignite months of speculation, analysis, and cultural obsession. And what came next, the way Meghan processed, responded, and engaged, would escalate the drama beyond anything anyone could have predicted. The stage was set for confrontation, revelation, and the kind of public spectacle that leaves the world talking. As the words, "fake Duchess," hung in the air, and Meghan Markle processed the unexpected blow, the attention wasn't just on the studio audience. It extended into the celebrity ecosystem. Hollywood insiders, mutual acquaintances, and industry observers began to weigh in, sharing perspectives, anecdotes, and interpretations that added layers to the story. These were people who had crossed paths with both Dakota Fanning and Meghan Markle, who had witnessed their behaviors at galas, premieres, charity events, and private gatherings. And their accounts painted a picture far more nuanced, and sometimes more shocking, than what viewers at home could see on camera. One source, a producer who had worked on multiple high-profile late-night interviews, described the exchange as electrifying, tense, and unforgettable. They recalled how Dakota, known for her measured yet incisive commentary, had positioned her body language to assert authority without aggression. She didn't need to raise her voice, the insider explained. She spoke calmly, deliberately, and everyone in the room leaned in. Even Seth paused. You could feel the tension like a live wire. Such accounts help contextualize what many might have initially dismissed as a simple quip. Dakota's approach was deliberate. It was informed by years of observing celebrity dynamics and the subtle power plays that occur behind the scenes. Another insider, this one from Meghan's social circle, added nuance to the perception of the moment. Meghan is always composed, they said. She has to be. But there's a vulnerability when someone calls your authenticity into question, especially publicly. Dakota's comment hit her in a way that no tabloid headline ever could. This perspective highlights the unique power of a live, direct confrontation. It bypasses carefully controlled PR narratives and addresses the individual in a way that demands immediate, personal engagement. Unlike a magazine cover or an article, which can be prepared for, dissected, or ignored, Dakota's words were immediate, direct, and unavoidable. A veteran Hollywood publicist who has worked with both stars offered an analysis that frames the event in terms of strategy and influence. This was a masterclass in timing and impact, they explained. Dakota understood the cameras, the audience, the moment. She knew the words would resonate far beyond the studio. She leveraged the live platform to maximize effect, and Meghan's response, or lack of one in the first few moments, only amplified the drama. The insider emphasized that in entertainment culture, a well-delivered critique can have more cultural resonance than a formal media piece or investigative report. Dakota's skill was in converting an ordinary interview into a spectacle that the world couldn't stop talking about. There were also whispers from those who had observed Dakota and Meghan in more informal settings. According to multiple sources, both women had attended overlapping charity events and celebrity galas in the past, where they occasionally exchanged polite greetings. Some observers noted subtle tensions during these encounters: raised eyebrows, slight shifts in posture, or fleeting glances that suggested mutual awareness of each other's public personas. Nothing overt, nothing confrontational, but enough to suggest that Dakota had been paying attention to Meghan's public image long before the late-night showdown. These behind-the-scenes observations add depth to the story. What viewers saw on camera was not merely spontaneous. It had a foundation built over years of observation, perception, and subtle analysis. Interestingly, several celebrity witnesses pointed out the layered dynamics of fame and royalty. One insider remarked, "Hollywood is blunt. Royalty is polished. When these worlds intersect, there's a collision of expectation." Dakota comes from an environment where honesty is valued over image. Meghan is used to careful curation. That contrast made the moment inevitable once they shared the same platform. The observation underscores why the comment resonated so strongly. It wasn't just about Meghan individually. It was about the tension between two different paradigms of fame, celebrity, and authenticity. Social media corroborated many of these insider perspectives. Clips of the moment, slowed down and analyzed frame by frame, revealed nuances that casual viewers might have missed. Analysts pointed out microexpressions, subtle shifts in gaze, and posture changes that indicated both surprise and contemplation. Observers noted that Dakota's calm composure contrasted sharply with the heightened tension visible in Meghan's initial reaction. Experts in body language and celebrity behavior weighed in, offering theories about what the exchange revealed about confidence, authority, and vulnerability in public figures. The world was dissecting every second because every second carried meaning. A particularly revealing account came from a former late-night show staffer who described the backstage atmosphere during the recording. The crew was buzzing, whispering to each other, they recalled. There's a palpable energy in the studio when someone says something that stops the show in its tracks. Dakota had everyone leaning forward. Meghan's presence was felt, even off camera, and you could see the crew wondering how she would respond. The tension was almost cinematic. The insider emphasized that moments like these are rare, even in a field saturated with celebrity interviews. The combination of timing, delivery, and underlying dynamics created an atmosphere that was impossible to ignore, one that would amplify once shared online. Moreover, these accounts highlight the ripple effect of celebrity observation. It wasn't just the studio audience reacting. It was an entire ecosystem of observers, analysts, and insiders who contributed to the narrative. Industry professionals began speculating about the potential long-term impact on both Meghan's and Dakota's public images. How would this confrontation affect Meghan's brand? Would Dakota's boldness be celebrated, criticized, or debated? Could this single exchange shift perceptions in Hollywood, royal circles, and among the global public? Every perspective added complexity to a moment that was already charged with tension, curiosity, and cultural significance. Even beyond Hollywood, international media picked up the story quickly. British tabloids, American entertainment outlets, and European gossip platforms all emphasized the same point. Dakota Fanning had publicly questioned Meghan Markle's authenticity. Sources close to both women were quoted, and speculation ran rampant. Some suggested that Dakota's comments were informed by personal observation. Others argued they were calculated for maximum impact. Regardless of intent, the perception created by celebrity witnesses and insiders amplified the drama. But perhaps the most intriguing part of these accounts is the insight into human behavior under pressure. Witnesses emphasized that both women were aware of the stakes. Dakota, confident and unflinching, understood the power of live television. Meghan, experienced but challenged, navigated a sudden, direct confrontation that forced authenticity into the spotlight. The psychological tension, the mix of pride, caution, vulnerability, and strategic thinking, was palpable, even to those watching behind the scenes. For viewers, it added an emotional resonance that elevated the moment from celebrity gossip to a study of human behavior under extreme public scrutiny. Here's the cliffhanger. As the celebrity witnesses shared their observations and social media exploded with commentary, a new layer emerged. An insider leak suggesting that Dakota's critique might have deeper roots, informed by knowledge of Meghan's private strategies, past interactions, and behind-the-scenes behavior. Suddenly, the public confrontation on Seth Meyers' stage was no longer just a live moment. It was part of a larger, unfolding story that hinted at hidden tensions, unspoken rivalries, and revelations that the world had yet to see. In the world of fame, a reputation is both a shield and a weapon. For Meghan Markle, it has always been a fragile balance. One carefully measured gesture, one strategically released statement, one public misstep could shift perception in ways that reverberate far beyond the immediate moment. And on the night Dakota Fanning uttered the words, "fake Duchess," on Late Night with Seth Meyers, that carefully curated reputation teetered on the edge. The phrase wasn't just a comment. It was an incision, slicing through years of public image management, media narratives, and royal polish. Meghan Markle's reputation, especially post-royalty, has always been in the crosshairs of public scrutiny. When she married Prince Harry, she stepped into a role that demanded perfection, diplomacy, and constant awareness of global perception. Every smile was scrutinized, every gesture analyzed, every word broadcast and dissected across continents. For someone whose life is so meticulously observed, even small critiques can carry enormous weight. And when Dakota Fanning, a Hollywood figure unburdened by royal etiquette, delivered her verdict, The impact was immediate, profound, and difficult to mitigate. Reputation, in Meghan's case, is more than public opinion, it's currency. Her brand, her philanthropic efforts, her media ventures, and even her personal projects rely on public trust and admiration. To be labeled a fake Duchess is to challenge that trust, casting a shadow of doubt over her authenticity, her integrity, and her very persona. For celebrities, particularly those who have intertwined public roles with personal identity, such accusations can have ripple effects across careers, partnerships, and social standing. The dynamics of reputation in the modern age amplify these stakes. Social media, viral clips, and instant news cycles mean that comments like Dakota's don't remain confined to a studio. They explode across platforms, reaching millions within minutes. Twitter threads dissect the remark. Instagram stories replay the moment. TikTok users create commentary and parody clips, and news outlets publish analyses within hours. Each iteration magnifies the message, ensuring that the critique of Meghan's authenticity is no longer an isolated incident. It becomes a global conversation. But beyond digital amplification, there's the emotional and psychological weight. For someone constantly navigating public life under intense scrutiny, moments like these are inherently destabilizing. The insult may be delivered in a calm tone, but its implications resonate deeply. It forces the individual to confront how they are perceived versus how they wish to be perceived. The words fake Duchess cut to the core, suggesting that despite accolades, achievements,